Never been to a Broad Beta broadcast before. Nice, welcome. So Broad Beta emboldens women and genderqueer folks to share stories of wildness in the outdoors through our website, social media, our podcast, we're on Spotify, and occasionally we have nights where we gather in person, in community. And Jeannie Wall, one of our founders, is going to share a little bit of details about Broad Beta later, but before we get to that, why do we have an event like this? Well, it lifts us all up. When we share our stories, it helps give us confidence to go out and do wild things in nature. Most of these activities that we do are pretty masculine in nature. We're trying to achieve a goal with a lot of focus. But if we take a moment, take a second, we realize how our femininity has helped us, our strength, our emotions, our ability to receive. Having a chance to grow and reflect helps us understand the experiences that we've had. So tonight we're going to hear some stories in this beautiful environment, under the full moon. And it takes a lot of courage to stand up and speak in front of everyone, to share your truth. So I want to remind everyone that we're going to be quiet when others are speaking, that we're going to listen from our heart without any judgment. What may have been difficult for someone may not be difficult for you, and that's okay. We're not here to judge their experiences. We're just here to listen, learn, and hopefully grow. And we could sit here tonight and maybe not know anyone, maybe just kind of eat our pizza, watch the stories, listen a little bit. Or we could try to get to know someone new. So let's take the next few minutes and get to know the people who we're sitting next to. Introduce ourselves. Say, I'll give you a few minutes, but introduce your name. Say maybe where you're from, what you're excited about in the outdoors. I'll give you a few minutes here. You can hear me, put your hand in the air. If you can hear me, put your other hand in the air. If you can hear me, wiggle your fingers. I just came up with that on the spot. Pretty good. All right, so who met someone that they didn't know before? Nice. Potential climbing buddies, ski buddies. All right, thanks for doing that activity, getting to know who you're sitting next to. So while we hear the speakers talk tonight, I encourage you to listen from your heart, as I said, but maybe try to learn something new without any judgment. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce all of you to Jeannie Wall, who is a world-class skier, has been an ultra runner for decades. Currently, she is obsessed with climbing in all forms. She's the co-founder of Broad Beta, an aspiring meditator and Picatarian with 25 years developing, designing, climbing, skiing, and endurance apparel for the outdoor industry. After decades of working and playing in a male-dominated world, her quest is to help create a more equitable outdoor community filled with gratitude, compassion, and the passion to protect the wild spaces both inside us and out. Give it up for Jeannie Wall.
Always tough to follow an extrovert, but boy, we've got Sarah in-house. All right. Thanks for showing up in support of an amazing women's and genderqueer community, a mountain community. It's super exciting. Tons of great events this week coming up, but this is always a favorite for us to be able to put this on and do something special for women and all of the genderqueer folks here in this community. So, as Sarah mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Broad Beta with another friend of ours. There's a host of women here working with us on all facets of it. It's a super exciting pursuit from my background in this industry, and just seeing all of you here and knowing what it means to all of us to be here in support of each other. So you're about to hear 6 really unique short presentations, and without doubt, they will inspire and embolden all of us. And that is the mission of Broad Beta. This is our live version of what we're doing online. And as you can see, that the headers on the website, there's a lot more going on. We just launched our first full interview podcast, which will come out once a month. We do written stories with an audio podcast version of those. You can take them on the road. We're doing gear reviews that are specific to women, tech tips, and food journeys. Our journeys with food as mountain women, and recipes, and kind of all that entails. Super important, and it's really about the whole lifestyle, and finding a place where we can all be vulnerable, but really full disclosure of all of what we have to offer and inspire others with. So one thing I'd love to encourage all of you, write the Broad Beta email if you want to share a story, if you have a tech tip. That's what this is all about. So, together we're trying to build a really compassionate community, and through sharing our stories of adventure, the idea is that, we have these stories that are really fun. We come to these events, we get the mountain kind of trophies and things, but it's really more about our connection to wildness and our connection to wilderness, and how that brings us all the way around to wanting to protect that wildness that's out there. And I think, put this one up. I wanted to just put this up here because it's really about that nature that we have, finding our true selves as women, not maybe letting culture affect as much of that. I think wilderness helps us all find that. Having these adventures puts us out there in places. We come back emboldened and inspired and empowered. And when that happens, that's when I think we can all create change, and we can all fight for an equitable community and diversity and inclusion, and be who we really are. So that's more of what Broad Beta is really about. But as mountain people, this is where we find our joy, right? We go out and share these adventures with other partners and come back a changed person. So we'd love to share your stories. Please bring them back. And thank you for showing up as allies to each other and for everyone on the margin of society. So that's really what we're all about. There's a quote that I like, and you can include everyone we've just talked about, but the power of women united is, it's an invincible thing, and we saw that with the women's movement and the marches, and this is just our own little grassroots movement in that regard. So thanks for being here. I want to give a couple thanks. First to the presenters here tonight for living out their true nature, for living out their dreams, for being willing in full disclosure to share them with all of us here tonight, and inspire all of us to go out and find those same journeys, or have them. So, and to that effect, to that end, the raffle ticket money will go to a grant that we're going to offer. A couple companies are sponsoring this as well, but we're going to start offering a grant this winter that you could apply for to just have some money to go out on an adventure and come back, write a story, do a test of some gear, maybe offer a tech tip or a recipe that you had on your trip. So that's where that goes. So thank you all for supporting that. Can't not thank all of our sponsors who helped make this happen. Last year, for those of you who are here, Forward sponsored the bigger ice festival and sponsored this event. The women who came were super excited. And so we got together, and the Bronco Wild Fund is their nonprofit arm, and they are charged with collaborating with groups like ours who are out here trying to work for diversity and inclusion and being good stewards of the environment. So that was really exciting that they came back. They weren't able to be here, but grab a tote bag on your way out if you didn't already get one. Those are all like, from the Bronco Wild Fund. Couple local folks, Highline Partners. There's 3 of you out here. Woo-hoo! And a construction company out of Big Sky, but an incredible group of people, super supportive of women. I work with some Avalanche Center, other nonprofits in town, and they're one of the most generous groups supporting nonprofits. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your support. We're really grateful. Nerona was a big supporter. Those of you who don't know them, and this is important to us at Broad Beta, we're aligning ourselves with companies that we believe are doing the right thing for all of these ends and issues. They're one of the few family-owned businesses left in the industry. They're out of Norway, but really wonderful people. So they chimed in. I'd say I don't know if they're still here, but we got to give it up for La Foley Kitchen. The pizza was amazing. Really, really generous, again, supporting other nonprofits as well. But this was an incredible spread. So before you leave, jump in and take some more with you. Bridger Brewing, yay, Lauren, thank you for being here. Mountains Walking was also a brewery that there's tons of beer over here. You can take some home with you. Really, really great group of people. So, and then we have 3 women's businesses here who I just feel really fortunate to know the folks that are running these businesses, to support them, to just be in collaboration with them. And 3 of them are here and have supported this event. So Shannon with Gastronome. If you haven't tried that, her backcountry meals, they're outrageous. They turned it like, it made it feel like I had real food when I'm out there. So I'm always coming up with her food in the backcountry. It's really good. Tanya, did you make it from? Yep. Yeah, all right. Mountain Girl is a group that is taking women and girls out in the backcountry on all kinds of different trips. We'll probably do an event with them with a climbing group and another maybe smaller broadcast night. So thank you for all you're doing to get women outside. And last but not least, Kristen and staff and the group back here are with the Women's Climbing Collective, which is the great Montana Women's Rock Climbing Festival. And that's going to happen in June this year. Super fun event. So check in with them in the back if you want to get more details, but definitely try to sign up for that. It's amazing, and we'll do another broadcast there as well. Okay, so Becky's going to give you some details about speakers, and if you love what you see here tonight, like I said, please just email us, let us know if you want to write a story, let us know what you think, and join the newsletter, and thanks for your support, so enjoy the show.
All right, good evening, my people. Couple things, just because I work here, and I feel like I need to cover housekeeping. The bathrooms are out the door and to the right. Feel free to visit those. We have plenty of beverages. The water cooler is mostly full, so help yourself. Keep drinking responsibly and joining afterwards. Just be careful. You guys are responsible, don't make me disappointed. If you're having a hard time hearing in the back, can we come up with like a hand signal, like maybe like the thumbs up, like hold the microphone closer to your face? So feel free for you guys speaking. It's really easy just to start doing this. So if you're having a hard time hearing in the back, just give people like a little thumbs up, like a little reminder. I just bring it up because we've had trouble in the past with sound and people talking very quietly. So, we clear? We good? Any questions? Everybody get enough pizza? Feeling good? Anybody going ice climbing tomorrow or the next day or the next day or the next day? Anybody going skiing so they don't have to deal with the ice climbing? Understandable. I don't blame you. Like Jeannie said, my name is Becky. If we haven't met yet, I'm sure we will in the future. I know a whole smattering of you, and I'm really happy that you could be here again for this awesome event. It was so awesome last year. We crammed so many people into that little closet, and now at least we have high ceilings and windows and a little bit more space. So I thank you for being here again. I work here at Uphill. I do the buying, and just to continue with what Jeannie was talking about, I'm not going to take a lot of time, so just bear with me. It's really important to have an outdoor shop that's local and independent in Bozeman, and it's really important for me to have equal women's options in a shop. So that's why I work. Because it sucks bus going somewhere and you want to try on that cool pair of pants and it's just in dude sizes. So I work super hard at making sure we have equal representation for everyone. Skis, clothing, obviously mitts, gloves, helmets. We want to cover everybody's body and offer a variety of things for whatever activity you want to do. So on that note, if you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know. Super open. I love talking about gear. That's my job. Call me anytime. Stop by. With that, I think I'm going to get to the speakers, if there's nothing else we have to cover. And our first speaker is going to be Francine Spang-Willis, and I think probably many of you from the Bozeman area know Francine or have heard of Francine because you've been here 12 years. And so for everybody, I'm just going to read a little bit of what they wrote about themselves. And I might edit a little. Francine is amazing. We haven't known each other for very long. I've known your husband and I've known Justin much longer. But reading through what she has written, it's like, dude, she's getting after it. Like, okay, I'm just going to launch into it. Francine is an oral historian, an educator, based here, obviously. She's going to tell you a little bit more about where she comes from. So I'm not going to cover that part because that's not my place anyway. She's an avid supporter of bison rewilding for the benefit of the land and the biodiversity on the land. Francine enjoys engaging with the land through hiking, fishing, and occasionally ice climbing. Totally understand that. Maybe when the weather's nice. As an owner of Appearing Flying Women Consulting, LLC, she collaborates with diverse organizations, communities, and individuals on community-centered oral history projects. And I have a whole smattering of different projects that Francine has listed out, and if you're interested in those, please contact her. There's just many. There's so many. She got her oral history Master of Arts at a really cool program at Columbia, which I'd actually heard of before. Like, that is like the place to go, right? Yeah, which is rad. And then she's got a master's in Native American Studies from MSU. Page 2. Francine is serving as a co-chair of the Oral History Association Diversity Committee and an elected member of the nominated committee and a member of the newly formed Indigenous Caucus. She serves on the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness Foundation, Wild Earth Guardians, and Humanities Montana Board of Directors, which is kind of a thankless job sitting on all those boards, so that's rad. Thank you. With that, I'm going to let Francine continue where I left off and fill in some holes, so please give her a warm welcome.
Naish, which means thank you in the Cheyenne language, for your time and attention this evening. I'd also like to give a big thanks to Jeannie for inviting me to this event. I'm so thrilled to see so many folks connecting to the land. And I'm going to use my little iPad here, my notes, because I only have a short amount of time and I don't want to get off track and be up here for 30 minutes, which I'm sure Jeannie wouldn't let me be up here for 30 minutes. As previously stated, my English name is Francine Spang-Willis, and my Cheyenne name is Appearing Flying Woman. I am of Cheyenne, Pawnee, and settler descent. I grew up on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, which is located in southeastern Montana. I have lived in Bozeman for 12 years with my husband, Russ, who is an alpinist, and our 100-year-old beagle. We also have a lovely off-grid cabin, which Russ built near Cook City in the Beartooth Mountains that we visit and enjoy year-round. I'd like to talk about the following 3 topic areas as they relate to the land and the biodiversity on it. Indigenous peoples and land acknowledgement and expressing gratitude, my and your relationship with the land, the concept of reciprocity, and how we might deepen our relationship with the land through acts of reciprocity. Great. First and foremost, I acknowledge and respect Indigenous people and their ongoing connection and relationship with the land, the sacrifices they have made so we could live here today. As you might be aware, millions of Indigenous humans have existed on this landscape for thousands of years. Today, millions of Indigenous people are still connected to the land we now know as the United States. As a result of the settlement of the West, 7 reservations in Montana, which you will see on the map, were established during the late 1800s, including the following: the Blackfeet, the Crow, the Flathead, the Fort Belknap, Fort Peck, Northern Cheyenne, and Rocky Boy. 6 of these 7 reservations were established before Montana became a state. The following Indigenous and sovereign nations were able to obtain these 7 reservations through treaties and executive orders with the United States federal government. And these nations in Montana include the Assiniboine and Sioux, the Blackfeet, the Chippewa and Cree, the Confederated Tribes of the Salish, Kootenai, and Pend Oreille, the Crow, the Gros Ventre, and the Northern Cheyenne. It must be noted that these Indigenous nations and the citizens of these nations are still connected to the landscape that extend far beyond these 7 reservations. It must also be noted that the Little Shell Band of Chippewa Cree Nation has been recently federally recognized, but they do not have a reservation. Today, because of the layered history of the land, we are all connected to it as we engage with it for sustenance, spiritual, and recreational reasons. Could you scroll up just a little bit? Or do you want me to do it? I can do it. Just a little bit more. Yep, just center that. Okay. So how we engage with the land helps define our relationship with it. For example, while growing up on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, I typically engaged with the land through fishing, hiking, swimming, gathering berries, gardening, and camping with my family and friends. As an adult, I engage with the land spiritually, and I also engage with it through climbing, camping, skiing, snowmobiling, and enjoying my off-grid cabin with family and friends. In my lifetime, it is safe to say that I have benefited immensely from the land and the biodiversity on it. They have allowed me to live a quality life like everyone here. I'm also aware of my ancestors' deep love for the land and the biodiversity on it, as well as their deep sacrifices they made during the settlement of the land, so all of us can enjoy it today. I also understand the depth of my love and relationship with the land and the biodiversity, as well as my obligation to take care of them for future generations, to experience and enjoy them. So naturally, I want to do my part to fulfill my stewardship obligation and practice reciprocity. So it's critical to consider the concept of reciprocity, which is the practice of exchanging with others for mutual benefit. Tonight, I'd like you to start thinking about the practice of exchanging with the land and all living beings on it for the mutual benefit of all. When I engage with the land, I take time to give an Indigenous peoples and land acknowledgement and thank you, and at times I will offer tobacco. A simple act of acknowledgement and gratitude has the potential to help with the reconciliation and healing process, as well as the progression of the land and all living beings on it. But we must not stop there. We must also consider and develop a plan to practice reciprocity and fulfill our stewardship obligations for future generations. It's also important to note that we must practice the inclusion of other diverse ways of knowing, being, and doing in our current processes. In my Cheyenne worldview, everything is our relative, including other humans, plants, animals, water, and future generations. If we look at the land and other living beings in that sense of being a relative we deeply love and care about, we should naturally want to take care of them. In my lifetime, I've had wonderful opportunities to give back to the land and the biodiversity in the following ways. I've co-authored a multi-million-dollar proposal for an oral history project called the American Indian Tribal Histories Project that includes Crow, Cheyenne, and Chippewa Cree perspectives and knowledge about their history and culture as a part of American history. I've earned a Master of Arts in Native American Studies and then taught students at an undergraduate and graduate level about the impacts of colonization and the processes of colonialism on Indigenous peoples and other beings, and the land that we are all connected to. I've worked with the Bighorn and Custer Gallatin National Forests to help protect Indigenous historical sites. I've also obtained a second Master's of Arts degree in oral history, and for my thesis, which is a website and 3-part podcast, I focused on a particular set of colonial processes starting in the mid to late 1800s, which fractionated the land, disrupted the tall grass prairie ecosystem, which is at less than 1% today, and negatively impacts the land, biodiversity on it, like bison, and the environment. I started a consulting business to collaborate with different conservation groups and organizations to help access and give access to diverse perspectives through an oral history methodology, so diverse communities can consider and envision and create a plan and practice reciprocity to help take care of the land and the biodiversity on it. And then up here, I know you can't really see it, but the title of my thesis is called Becoming Wild Again in America, the Restoration and Resurgence of the Pablo Allard Bison Herd. So in closing, I ask you to do the following. Consider your relationship with the land and biodiversity on it, and how you might deepen these relationships. Create and give an Indigenous peoples and land acknowledgement that includes a thank you to Indigenous people for living with the land and other biodiversity in a sustainable way for thousands of years, and the sacrifices they made for us to live here, and the recognition of your stewardship obligation so future generations can enjoy it. Consider and practice the concept of reciprocity and the different ways to give back to the land and biodiversity for the mutual benefit of all. Again, thank you for your time and attention.
Are you good for any questions? Do we have any questions for Francine?
Go for it.
Can you give an example of an Indigenous land acknowledgement?
My presentation was a Indigenous peoples and land acknowledgement, but if you do your research, you can find out what Indigenous people are connected to different lands. But you also, there's a website that I didn't include, I didn't think to include it, that you can access, and it'll give you an idea of what peoples were connected to the land. But you also have to consider that people weren't static, so they didn't just live in one place. So especially like Cheyenne people, or Indigenous people moved around on the land quite a bit over thousands of years. And then also when you're looking at the history of the settlement of the land, that settlement pushed Indigenous tribes to different areas on the land. So it's also important to consider, the time period that you're talking about as well. And so by mentioning the reservations and all the Indigenous nations that did their part in obtaining those reservations, I'm giving that respect by just mentioning that history. And just knowing, growing up, I wasn't taught in like the traditional K through 12 school system about like the Cheyenne history and how we were able to obtain the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. So that's something that my community taught me and my family. But you can access different things on the internet, like Google Scholar, to get some of that history. You could also take an introduction to Native American Studies course or something like that at a higher education institution. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, thank you.
All right, what a beautiful start. Next up, we have Deb Glosser. And Deb got her start in climbing from Mount Hood, on Mount Hood, while she was in graduate school in Oregon. Although she considers Hood her home mountain, she currently splits her time between Bozeman and Bellingham, where she is a rescue member of the Bellingham Mountain Rescue and a professor at Western Washington. She's a holder of several current and former Cascades FKTs. She loves climbing steep ice, but does not yet have a love of steep rock. I feel like that's a little bit of a personal thing, but I also respect everybody's opinion about steep rock climbing. Very polarizing, right? You put somebody on slab and you're like, ugh, I hate slab. Oh, we got it up, so I can stop wasting time. Deb, are you ready? Okay.
Hey everyone, I actually do like slab climbing. That's the only form of rock I'm into. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge I'm a little out of my element here. Definitely see myself as a recreational climber. But I'm guessing most of us in this room are kind of on that hobby end of the spectrum, so hopefully that'll make some of what I'm going to say today a little bit more relatable.
Could you put the mic closer to your mouth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sweet. Okay, I'll probably forget it a million times. So, yeah, I'm going to talk today about my soaring climbing and how I went from knowing nothing to getting a little bit too much ego involved to landing where I'm at now, which is seeing climbing as sort of a sport for partnership. And yeah, like I said, a little out of my element, but I am a professor, so I'm used to PowerPoint, so I'm just going to aid my way through this. So yeah, I got my start climbing on Mount Hood when I was in grad school in Oregon. I kind of like got into the sport the way that I'm guessing a lot of people did, which is I went to social media. Oh God. And I asked people to take me out, and it was mostly just a bunch of dudes, unsurprisingly. And that's kind of like a whole different conversation, some of the really heinous experiences that I had with that, but overall, it just wasn't the best way to like learn skills or gain confidence or anything. So that kind of came to me like progressively. I took some classes at the university at Oregon State, hired some guides, did airy, woofer, all that stuff, and slowly started to just kind of like learn my way around the backcountry. And eventually I found my way into like a good crew. Here's us on Mount Hood, just kind of goofing off, climbing seracs in Hawaiian t-shirts and jorts. But yeah, so Corvallis is an awesome town, but unless you're going to drive like 3 hours south to Bend to like Pot Choss Pimples, there's not really much to do other than climb Mount Hood. So we did that a lot. I started out on the walk-up routes like Pearly Gates, Old Chute, and then like slowly found that Mount Hood is like this awesome playground for technical like mountain climbing, ranging from like AI2 to really technical mixed and ice routes. And I just sort of slowly got more and more into it. And started to enjoy like really moving fast and smoothly with minimal gear. So that kind of led to my next step in the outdoors progression, which is like, my friend Jenny calls it alpineering, so like mountaineering and alpine climbing. This photo on the left is the approach to Boston Basin, and then running down the Boston Glacier, and you can see my friend Jenny in front of me. So I just kind of got obsessed with moving like as fast as I could. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it sort of became an end rather than a means to the end. And I kind of also, like, realized that footwear made a big difference, and I tried to do as much as I could in trail runners. So this is me, like, making these zero drop trail runners and aluminum crampons work really hard on like M4, AI2, like steep snow. Not the finest moment, but we made it work. My partner had to kick steps most of the way, so it's pretty useless. So I still do think that trail runners are like the best footwear for the Cascades, for like the volcanoes, but this is maybe not the best. So yeah, I just kind of like, oh, my video's not working, that's a bummer. So I got like super into, when I moved to Bellingham for work, post-COVID, like doing these ridge link ups, and kind of like got further and further obsessed with like moving as fast as I could in the mountains. And again, nothing wrong with that, but at that point for me wasn't necessarily about like enjoying the outdoors or enjoying being with people, it was just about moving as fast as I could. And unfortunately, that didn't necessarily make me the best person to go outside with. So this is the view most of my partners would see. It's kind of like me running off, occasionally like looking back and glaring at them for having to like stop for a snack or pee or something. And yeah, like looking back at like where my head was at, I'm not exactly sure what I was thinking, other than like I wasn't thinking about my partners, and I wasn't thinking of it as a collaboration or like a means to like enjoy the outdoors together and look out for each other. I think maybe I just saw it as like an impediment to me finishing with like as much speed or what I considered style as possible. And I'm really kind of like ashamed of that. And I think this sport draws a lot of high achieving people and goal oriented people. And again, not a bad thing, but like everything in life, you kind of got to temper it. And yeah, I just kind of like took it too far. And I kind of like continued to take it too far for a while. So this is, anybody here from Washington? Okay, so you guys are all familiar with like the West Ridge of Mount Stewart. It's just like notorious for epics. It's like, it's 5'6", but it's like labyrinthine. And I was like obsessed with finishing this in under 10 hours car to car. And my buddy Max, he had like a pebble stuck in his shoe in the Cascadian Couloir, like from the top to the bottom, and I would not let him stop to like get it out. It was like, yeah, not awesome. Sorry, Max. I should call him and apologize. So, yeah, that was kind of like me for a while, and sorry to anybody who knew me, 2020 and 2021. So, like, okay, I'll talk about some personal stuff now. About this time last year, I started to have like heinously heavy periods, like worse than anything you could imagine. And it turned out I had uterine fibroids, and so like, it got so bad that I was getting like 2 or 3 blood transfusions a month, and yeah, it fucking sucked. And it was like the middle of COVID, like, and so there was so much wait time to get a hysterectomy. So I was hanging out here at Highlight. If anybody's here last winter, you probably just saw me like sadly soloing Water Ice 3 because I didn't want to hang out with anybody. It wasn't great, and you know, you can't really enjoy being outside, especially in the cold weather, when you're like so anemic because you're bleeding out half your blood volume and just like tired as shit. Yeah, it sucked. And so then like, I finally got the hysterectomy, and that was like last January or February. Yeah, oh yeah. Life without periods is amazing. So the thing is, like, when that happened, between being sick for so long and then having to deal with the surgical recovery, I kind of realized that like I'd lost a few steps and I wasn't moving as fast as like I had been previously, which in my head was like, oh no, this makes me a horrible partner because I'm slow now. So this is where my friend Alexa comes in. This is Alexa Cathcart. She's also a realtor, FYI. If you're trying to buy a house in Washington, hit her up. Yeah, I met her this summer before with our friend Holly, like mutually, and we kind of like loosely kept in touch throughout the course of the year. And yeah, she's awesome. There's a goat in the background if you look closely. So Alexa is a professional skier and a mountain guide, and she's also like 10 years younger than me. So super intimidating if she weren't so nice. And I kind of like, I really owe a lot to her because she sort of modeled good behavior as like a person and an alpine partner. And like I told her when we started to hang out last summer, this past summer, I was like, yo, I'm pretty intimidated and like I'm moving kind of slower than usual. And she was just super cool about it. She was like, whatever, like I get out all the time, let's just go hang out and have fun. And like, turned out like you can't really get too aggro about things when you're too busy laughing because your partner is fucking awesome. She's just hilarious. She also shares my love of trail running volcanoes with microspikes. So, yeah, I guess like kind of my learning from this was that, you know, what makes you a good partner in the outdoors isn't moving faster than your partner or glaring at them or making them cry because they have a pebble in their shoe. It's kind of like, you know, looking out for each other and just kind of like communicating well, I guess like anything in life. So I grew a lot with her friendship. She's still one of my closest friends. We napped a lot, which is not something I ever would have done in the past. We also stopped and took a lot of photos. This toad in particular was like paralyzed in fear because we were just like photographing it for 10 minutes. And it also led to Alexa getting a very unappealing nickname, which I'm not going to repeat here for fear of embarrassing her. So yeah, this is exactly what you think. The slugs in the Pacific Northwest are pretty amazing, and if you Google slug reproduction, you'll get more information than you ever wanted. Oh yeah, we both hate having our photos taken, so I think this is the only one in existence with both of us, and we both look absolutely terrible. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to climb with her or get out in the mountains with her, I'd highly recommend it. She's super rad. And I guess like my other learning from this whole experience is that if you're only like obsessed with like doing things fast or being the best at things, you'll shut yourself off to a lot of experiences that you wouldn't get to have otherwise. So like, you know, there's nothing wrong, like I said, with moving fast, but just communicate about what you want to get out of the experience with your partners, make sure you're on the same page, and mostly just like don't shut yourself off to doing things that you kind of suck at, because the only way to get better at things is to suck at first. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Deb. I think Anna is next, and we just have to do a little computer swap over. But does anybody have any questions for Deb while we're doing the technology dance?
What did you say the best footwear was for fast games again?
All right, I have a very strong opinion about this. Okay, trail runners. So I actually would have said Fit because they have like the low drop shoes with like the vibrant outsole, but I'm super stoked on the Barrel shoes right now. So like low drop, you always want like the vibrant outsole and go through BroadCast. Because that just like keeps everything like all the moisture and you don't want it.
Any other questions for Deb? I feel like I'm losing you. Any other questions for Deb? Well, we've got Deb here, and we're doing the technology dance. Wow. Not often we nail the technology consistently. Okay.
Oh wait, maybe we are. We got.
Babby's, Anna's nailing the technology.
It was all just plug it into the right hole.
I won't repeat that because we still want to.
That's what she. Maybe that's what he said.
All right, friends. I like that we're finishing up the food and drinks. Please help yourself. We want everybody to leave here happy and well fed. Great. I think we're going to move on. Next, we have Anna Pfaff. Some of you might know her. Anna is an alpine. This is what she wrote, I imagine, right? This is what you sent over?
Yeah. Someone wrote it.
Someone wrote this. Anna's an alpine and expedition climber and nurse who has climbed some of the most extreme and remote terrain in the world. I could relate with this next statement. Born and raised in the rural Midwest, Ohio, Wisconsin. I'm sure there's many others, fellow Midwesterners. Anna started climbing when she moved to Colorado to finish her nursing degree at the University of Colorado, Denver. And then this is like the most understated final sentence. Since then, she has completed multiple expeditions all over the globe. Whatever. Love it.
I don't know who wrote that. It's all right. I don't know.
enjoy yourself now. Without further ado, Anna.
First of all, thanks so much for having me. Just full transparency, I don't know how long this is going to take, so if I start going over 10 minutes, I just need everyone to hold their hands up and necks, and we'll just rapidly move to the last slide. How does that sound? Anyway, it's so awesome that we can have a gathering of women here. So thanks, Jeannie, for putting this on. You're amazing. This is awesome. So when I was trying to figure out what to talk about, I just kind of decided that I wanted to talk about all the adventures that I've had with women around the world. In my climbing career, because I've been climbing for almost 20 years now, actually some of the biggest trips that I've done have been with women. And that's not an exaggeration. I would say actually 3/4 of the big climbs that I've done in my career have been with women partners. So I started off, this is me when I was, it's funny because I feel like my face looks so chubby. I'm like, wait, is that really? It's really me. I was probably maybe like 23 or 24. And one of my first mentors was actually this woman, Jean, known as Jean Tuckey in Yosemite Valley. And Jean was like a big wall connoisseur. She loved big wall climbing, she loved aid climbing. And she volunteered to take me up the Salafé Wall in Yosemite. I had been climbing for about a year at the time, so that's a big endeavor for someone to be like, hey, let's go climb a wall. But I was like so psyched. Little did I know that she took me because like I was going to lead all the off-with climbing and she was going to do all the aid climbing. But she taught me so much. I learned, we took 7 days to climb the Salafé, which like teams who are slow do it in 3 days. So we were like slow times three. I'm not really sure what we were doing up there, but we finally made it to the summit. It was one of the biggest experiences of my life. I was like such a Gumby. I think I dropped cams. I like had to go to work and buy her more cams because I dropped part of her rack. But she like invested the time into me and like gave me the chance, and I was really grateful for that. Fast forward to 2 years ago, Brett Harrington and I went back and climbed El Cap in 2 days. So it kind of just, I threw this photo in there just to show like how you can go from taking 7 days to do something, and then you learn and you can pull it off in a normal time period. Also with another woman, so that was good. There's Brett and I on the portal edge in the night. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about climbing with Brett Harrington. Brett Harrington is like a mega crusher. I mean, she climbs 514. I don't climb 514. On a good day, I climb like 5'9" or 5'10". But like when you're choosing your partners for climbing, like sometimes it doesn't matter if like we can get really intimidated by someone who's like, oh my God, they're so much better of a technical climber than we are, and like I don't want to go climbing with them. But it's not always about that. It's about having a good experience together and knowing what each other's experience is in, so that you can achieve the goal together. So, go back in time. Those slides are out of order. Sorry about that, but freestyling it up here. Jean, who I first talked about, that same winter after we climbed El Cap, she's like, "Hey, do you want to go to Patagonia?" So I must have been all right. It must not have sucked that bad. I think I didn't drop all the water. I'd only like wet my pants once on El Cap. So she's like, "All right, sweet, we can go to Patagonia. Let's do it." So we went to Patagonia that year, and we had like the most, everything we did, turned into an epic. Not a bad epic or anything bad happened, but we would, use all of our weather windows, trying to figure out how to get to the base of the route. Everyone had climbed Fitzroy and came back down, and Jean and I are, still trying to make it to St. Exupery. But, that's how you learn, right? That's what happens. And we were finally able to climb something, and, yeah, it was just, one of those learning experiences. A lot of times, for me, my learning has been through epics, and whether it's with male, female, that's just how you learn, is by putting yourself out there and trying things. So fast forward to 2016, I had the opportunity to go climb in Norway with this woman who's the queen of alpinism, named Ines Papper. And I was so intimidated. Ines is she is the woman, she is the queen, holy shit, she asked me to go climb with her. So I'm terrified, but it was the same situation. Like, she was so awesome, and Inez is like so much stronger than me, but we were still able to pull off doing a first ascent together in Norway. And I was psyched the whole time, and I learned so much from her, just by being open and not being intimidated by my lack of technical skill compared to hers. So fast forward to 2017, two other women, Savannah Cummins and Lindsay Fixmer. Is Lindsay here? No.
She's just going to the guides meeting.
Oh, guides meeting? Anyway, so Lindsay Fixmer and I and Savannah Cummins, we did an expedition to the Kashmir region, which is located between Pakistan and India. And we went to this very, very far away place called the Raru Valley. Took a really long time to get there. I was just some crazy heroin idea that I decided, I'm like, hey, let's go here and check out this valley and see what we can climb. And here's Lindsay in the middle of, and we're literally like in the middle of nowhere. And we're looking around at all these objectives, and we're like, oh my God, what are we gonna climb? All of these peaks are terrifying. And all of us kind of had a different skill set. And when we put all those skill sets together, we were able to pull off doing a first ascent in India. And that was really important to me because it was 3 women in the middle of the Kashmir, which is like unheard of, totally by ourselves, just looking at all these mountains, being like, okay, which one do you want to climb? We're like, oh shit, all those look so scary. Like, who's gonna leave the snow? Who's gonna leave the ice? Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And we came together and we're like, hey, I mean, it's the smallest peak in the valley, but that doesn't matter. It's still rad. Like, let's go and do it. Let's have a good time. And we were able to climb. So fast forward again to 2019, when I had one of the biggest climbs in my life. This woman, Sammy from Aspen, and I went to the Nepali Himalaya, and we climbed a new route on the southeast face of Labuche, which is a 6,000 meter peak, kind of out in like the whole, like, when you're trekking out to Everest, you see all these like giant mountains, and the mountains in the Himalaya are like, they're so big. Like, I used to think El Cap is big, and El Cap is big, and then you go to the Himalaya and you're just like, oh my God, these things are like so massive. How am I ever gonna get back up that and down and, still make it? So we were able to do a first ascent. We did that triple line all the way up to the summit. There's Sammy and I, we're just, 2 women out climbing shit in the Himalaya. And it turned out to be a really awesome experience. And we had first set out, that peak behind me is the north face of Chalatse, and I was really set on climbing the north face of Chalatse, and then when I got to the base of it, I was like, holy shit, we gotta go climb something different first, because it's just so big and intimidating. And I've always been okay with that. Like, if I look at something and I'm like, that's not for me yet. That will happen at some point in time, but right now that's not for me. And that's okay, you just change your objective. And there's Sammy on the summit of Labuche. So this was the last expedition I was on, just this past April, with this woman, Preeti Wright, out of Seattle. And Preeti and I had a blind date. I had met Preeti in passing, but I had never climbed with her before. But now I have, all this experience under my belt, and I feel confident that, given any situation, it's okay if I meet up with Preeti and she turns out to be just a crazy woman, which she's not. She's crazy in all the good ways, that it's going to be okay and everything is going to be fine, and everything was great and everything was a great time. But yeah, we met up in Talkeetna, and our goal was to climb the Harvard route on Mount Huntington, and here I am coming up the Crux Pitch. It's a big mountain in the Alaska Range. There I am, headed up towards the summit. So my whole point with sharing all these photos and trips with everyone is that women, when you combine, I liked that quote that you had brought up, Jeannie, because when we combine our forces together, really anything is possible anywhere in any part of the world. And it really doesn't matter, if someone's a better climber than you are, or, they're faster, like Debbie was saying, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you have a goal that you both want to achieve together, and you figure out how to do that together. So for one example would be maybe you go into a climb and it's hey, you're better at aid climbing or you're better at mixed climbing. So you know that this partner is gonna lead all the mixed pitches and you're gonna lead all the cracks. Maybe there's only 5, pitches of crack and there's 20 pitches of mix. It doesn't matter, you're doing it together to achieve your goal. And that's what I find, climbing with women is awesome because I felt like I've been able to combine the efforts in this really level playing field of a way to achieve goals. And I've really enjoyed that throughout my climbing career. I didn't transfer the last slide. I have it on my phone though. So I just wanted to dedicate I had a really good photo of Hillary Nelson. So I just wanted to dedicate our night in talking about women to the I don't want to cry either, sorry. To our TNF captain who we just lost a couple months ago. And she was like the ultimate woman explorer, and she would be so proud of all of us coming together in this room tonight. So let's just give a big
I think we've all been looking at our photo on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's a great ending. But we can just envision it. Questions for Anna? I know they're burning in your mind. Throw your hand up. Yes.
How did you go from thinking, you said 17 days?
No, 7. But we could have took 17 days probably then. I mean, we were so slow. I was such a Gumby. I didn't know anything. I was like, how do you haul? I don't know how to haul. And Jean's teaching me at the top. Yeah.
That answers the question.
Yeah. No, 7 days. Yeah. But normally people climb it in 30. We were just going really slow. And she knew, Jean was awesome. She knew, that it was going to take us a long time. And we took a lot of food and we took a lot of water. And she just, the older I get, I realize what she did for me. At the time, I didn't really realize the relevance of what she did for me. So now in my being, I want to offer that back to whoever I can.
Can you kind of tell us how you train mentally to just feel confident in these really tough alpine situations?
How I train
Mentally,
Yeah.
what are you doing in your head when you're crexing out and you're 20 feet over your last piece of the shitty cam?
Wet my pants. That has happened. That happened to me. Actually, that was a joke, but only because I know that it happened. That happened to me. That when I was talking about Patagonia briefly, that happened to me. I was above my piece. I was a newer alpine climber too, and I was terrified. Mixed climbing, anything with snow or ice terrified me because I was a rock climber. I started being a rock climber, and I was stemmed out in this chimney, and I had to pee so bad. But peeing as women sometimes can just be such a bitch. Oh my gosh! Then you gotta make sure you get your long underwear down and your underwear down, and you gotta and I wasn't. Now I know to pee when you gotta pee. And this is gonna circle back to your question. I was leading, I forgot what I was called, Point to Know. I was on Point to Know and I was stemmed out and I'm above my gear and I didn't know if it was good or not. And I peed and it was I'll never forget how it felt when I peed because it was I had to pee so bad and it was that relief when you have to pee. And I was oh God, this feels so good. I'm so excited that I peed. But I was literally in the middle of this huge Patagonia spire, and the pee ran, I'll never forget it, ran all the way down my left leg into filled my boot and was pouring out. And we kept going to the summit, and then went back down, and my poor part, I smelled so bad. Because you don't get back to town for 3 days, everything was saturated. So anyway, how do I mentally train? I think, that's a good question. I think now I'm gonna go back to answer your question. For most of my adult life, I've also worked as a trauma nurse, and I've always had this saying that if no one's dying or there's not imminent death, it's fine. And I kind of, in alpine climbing, I go through what is real fear and what is just fear that I made up in my mind because I'm just, like irrational fear. And a lot of times I'll have these talks in my head, like, that perfect #1 Camelot that's perfectly placed, it's not gonna just fall out of the rock if it's good rock, and I like, okay, this is good, this is what I have going on. And so I just have those irrational versus rational fear conversations in my mind. Sorry, I feel like I'm going over. Nobody gave me the X.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
How do you think your medical training informs your confidence, just to kind of piggyback on what you just said, when you're in those environments, like knowing that your training is there to back you up if like the big, whatever should happen?
That's a good question. The only thing that it has taught me is like stay calm, because honestly, in situations, like I can't do shit unless I have a hospital. Do you know what I mean? So like I can like patch, I think it's just taught me to be calm in situations that are like really bad or really scary. It's just like, okay, this is what's happening, and like getting worked up isn't really gonna fix anything.
Great.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, we're gonna keep rolling. You guys doing okay? Okay, great. Our next guest is potentially the one I know the best, and I was lucky enough to drive part of the way across the country with her just recently, and it was lovely. Talking about these blind dates, it was kind of a blind date. I was like, oh, it'll be fine, and it was great. So our next guest is Maiza Lima, and Maiza comes to us from Great Falls, Montana, and she was born and raised in a small village in Brazil, where sports like the things we're talking about right now were probably the farthest thing from your mind. Immigrated to the U.S. when she was 17 and has fought for the past 14 years to become a legal citizen, which she did in July. Maiza started climbing at the very young age of 26, and definitely grew passion and confidence to the sport. And through the years, she's been through a lot of big changes and climbed a lot of things that made her uncomfortable, but she handles it with such grace. She also recently started bolting rock climbs after moving to Montana in the hope to find and create more community and more opportunities around Great Falls. I don't know if y'all have ever been to Great Falls, but I don't think the climbing community is very large there. And when you don't have friends, you've got to make friends. And I think that was the thinking behind it, but she potentially might talk about that some more. And finally, what Maiza does now is she guides for a really cool women's organization called She Moves Mountains. Cool rock climbing, and I think they've branched into ice climbing. They might have a trip in like the Dolomites doing alpine things coming up. So if you would like one of those experiences, like that's a cool woman-owned organization they might want to check out. And she's a AFGA single pitch, what is it called, instructor? Instructor. Yeah, I think that's about it. So give Maiza a warm Bozeman welcome, please.
She basically took my line. She said everything I was going to say, so I don't really know. Well, I guess I'm a little bit nervous talking in front of people, so I'm not going to pee myself, I promise. But if I start laughing or crying, this is over. So hopefully we can just get chill. Becky, do you mind just like going? The photo is just so I don't like become my, when my dog's off leash, she just like roams over and just like disappears, and I just want to like keep track. So. The red circles, that means it's me. Growing up in Brazil, obviously the only thing I climbed was trees, and especially when my dad ran after me and he was trying to beat me. I would climb a tree and stay there until his anger was over. That happened many times, but it was just cultural, right? That happens a lot, but yeah, I grew up in a very small village in Brazil, and we had it rough. There were many times that I saw my mom crying because there was no food in the table. So I'm sorry, I'm going to start crying already. And it was really, really hard. And being a girl in a very small village, like people would always say, oh, you're gonna just be just like every other girl and just be pregnant, 15, and get married to like a cowboy or whatever. And because you don't see your way out, you feel stuck. And you don't know how to get out of there. Your parents can't afford to send you somewhere else to further education. So you really don't know what you're doing other than dreaming of living a better life. So in 2004, my mom had friends in Seattle, and they said, do you want to come to the US? You can just be there for 2 years, and you can make enough money to build yourself at least a house, because we also didn't really have a house that worked. Walls would fall because of rainfalls and things like that. And my mom said, yes, but I need to bring my daughter because I can't leave her here. I have 2 brothers. I haven't seen them since. But it worked out. They kind of paid for everything, but we could never afford to get a visa. So we came through Mexico and we walked for 3 days, and we arrived to the United States with no documents. The clothes I was wearing, it was everything I owned, and my passport, which I managed to keep, so it was really good. And we started cleaning houses, and like these people basically like put us in this thing that we call modern slavery, where they tell you what to do because you don't know any better. So it's easy to, just like work for them, do everything they tell you. You can't drive, you don't know anything, so you're just there stuck. And at some point, we were able to get out of it after we paid them, and we kind of learned a little bit more. But we started cleaning houses, and we did that for 14 years. And I tried so very hard to go to school or get better education, but without any documents, that's just not possible. And then in 2014, I started hiking, and I was like, wow, I can't believe people go up these mountains and dirt trails. Like, I always looked at the mountains, but I had no idea people actually went up it. I guess I didn't really know how to use Google, just not very good at it. And then I had a friend, and she said, oh, my dad did the Mountaineers, and so I heard of the Mountaineers. If you live in Seattle, I'm pretty sure, like, in the Seattle area, you've heard of them. And I went to their website, and then there was something called Alpine Climbing Course or something like that. And I had no idea what it is, but it said climbing, and I really wanted to do something called climbing. I also didn't know what climbing gyms were, and I didn't bother to Google it either. So I signed up and just waited till it was time, and then they sent this gear list, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get really broke right now, but that's okay. And so I joined them, and one of the most difficult things was for someone that had just started hiking to join a club where 99% of the people are guys, and they're like, you have to carry a certain amount of weight, we're gonna test you, your time, and your pace has to be good for you to make through all these climbs, otherwise you're just not allowed. And so you work so hard, right? I was getting up at like 4 a.m., going to the gym with a heavy pack and just putting like the treadmill on like the stiffest, and then I would go clean houses all day after that because I wanted it so bad. And another topic that was really hard was when they would ask, oh, how often do you go to Brazil? A lot of those people were immigrants. They worked for Microsoft and Google, but they didn't understand that my story was a little bit different and that I didn't have the opportunities to go back and visit my family and things like that. But I was so embarrassed that I actually never ever like mentioned to them, like, oh, I'm like, oh no, just like lie, oh, I see them once in a while and things like that, because it is hard. You never know when people are going to judge you, and I think that's pretty difficult. But I got super hooked into climbing. For the next 2 years, I became a climbing instructor for the Mountaineers and did all this school climbing, got scared too many times, got really burnt out, and decided that I was kind of done, and I was like, sport climbing sounds cool. I think I'm gonna start doing that. I think that was like end of 2015 or something when I started sport climbing and met my husband. He was really strong climber at the time. I'm sorry, I just forgot about the photos. This was me and my first hike, and these were the ladies that inspired me. I always carried a cow with me and all these things, but you know, it's fun when you find one other woman, you attach them like for dear life, like, you know, that's your friend, that's your partner for certain climbs, and it was really important for me to have that. But yeah, I met my husband and I had to break the news to him about my immigration status. Basically like, hey, I could actually get deported any day. And so that was really hard, and he was like, what can we do about it? I was like, well, we're gonna get married anyway, so might as well do it as fast as possible. And we did, but the process wasn't very easy because it took $7,000 in years, and my mom had gotten hers rejected, and she had to wait in Brazil for like almost a year, so we were terrified that that was gonna happen too. And that prompted him to join the military to make things a lot smoother, so they wouldn't just send me back to Brazil and hold me there for God knows how long. So I see you checking the time.
Oh no. I was making sure I don't go over.
Yeah, and so that's when we got married and we got stationed in Great Falls, Montana. So he calls me and says, hey, Great Falls, Montana. I was like, where's that? So, and then you just Google like, is there a Trader Joe's in Great Falls, Montana? All your favorite restaurants, you know. Is there a climbing gym in Great Falls, Montana? Like, it was just so important to me. I just started Googling everything. These are just more women that have seriously inspired me to like start hiking and backpacking. And my friend Kristen Norman, who basically inspired me to push myself in climbing because I was terrified of bleeding, and I would cry and I could never finish any routes. And then just watching other women, and I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it too, you know. So then you start pushing yourself because they're such a big role model in your life, and you just want to be as cool as they are. And then it's cool when you become friends, and you're like, wow, I've made it. Yeah. Let's see what's next. This is just like summit of Mount Baker. This was my first climb that I led for the mountaineers, and it was really cool. All the time I was just like, totally messed this up. Because there was, there's always someone there that's just like the mentor, and I'm like, she's gonna tell me that I suck at this and all these things, because the confidence lacks sometimes, and you always think you're doing things wrong, and that's one of the things that I've learned throughout the years is just like to like learn to trust myself and my skills a little bit more. That was really hard. Let's see what's next. That's just my, forget about it, just a summit photo. That's when I was ripped. And that's me and my husband. We got married. We climbed 5,000 feet to get married at the top because, it's cheaper than anything else. You don't have to invite many people. There's no need for parties or anything like that. And that's him, like, when he graduated basic with the Air Force. And I realized I had to quit my housekeeping job. How terrible. It was really awful. What is next, Becky? So that's me and my mom. We got our green card in separate ways. I got my green card in 2019, and it was actually really, really difficult interview, and she rejected it, but then she got soft and then she just sent it anyway. She thought our marriage was not real. So she's like, I need more proof. And I was like, how dare you? How dare you talk about my mom like that? Because, all these things. And so, and it turns out that we got our citizenships 2 weeks apart from each other, which is amazing. And especially for my mom, leaving her 2 sons in Brazil and not seeing them for 10 years was really hard for her. And it was just hard for them too. And I'm just so proud of her. And if there is a woman that's the biggest role model in my life, it's my mom, because she's suffered so much in her life. She was abused by her dad, and she was abused by my dad, and she just fought for us all this time, and she still is fighting, and she's still helping me, and she helped me through rock climbing like from day one. She would clean houses by herself so I could go climbing with friends, and she's just amazing, you know, and yeah, she is my biggest role model in the world. And that's just me screaming Montana. That's it. And in I think it's 2019 or 2020, I started getting a lot of recognition, and it's always difficult when you lack confidence, you know, when people start seeing you. And I got sponsored, but then when people call me professional rock climber, it really is really hard, because I'm like, I don't even climb that hard, like, stop calling me a professional rock climber. That title is for people that actually climb really hard. And imposter syndrome is really big. And recently I talked to a mental coach, and she said, what grade do you think you need to climb for you to feel like you deserve the title? And I didn't have an answer, because what is it really? What is it really that you need to prove to yourself or to other people, right? As long as you're out there representing and having a good time and being nice to people, that's like the most important thing. Oh, this is another passion of mine. My husband and I built a cabin in the Red River Gorge in Kentucky in 60 days, and if you followed me on Instagram, you saw the shit show that was. Because it was like 2 people, 60 days, a full cabin, let's go. But we did it, and it was awesome. It's a beautiful cabin, and that was just to show that I love rock climbing, but I also have other passions and things that I love to do, and women can build. For sure. And so in 2020, I did a photo shoot back in Joshua Tree with the owner of She Moves Mountains. And I said, God, I love watching your retreats. I love the community. I love being around women, and I love that inspiration. And I love talking about the things that I've learned throughout climbing, that I wanted to, like, people to not make the same mistakes with the lack of confidence and things like that. And she's like, yeah, you don't have to come. Like, you can be my guide. And I was like, really? I never wanted to be a guide. And she was like, you should try. So she basically paid for all my certs, and I started guiding, and there's nothing better in the world. Like, this is like the best job in the whole world, is to like guide women. And it's a place that I can be vulnerable, because it's really hard when you're a guide to jump on routes that you don't know and have to climb it in front of a bunch of people that are looking up to you. And I don't know, maybe they have expectations, maybe they don't, you don't know, but you have this huge expectation on yourself. It's like, oh my God, what if I fall in front of them? You know, what if? So it's really important for me, when I'm around women, I'm way more open, to be open and tell them, hey, I'm a little scared, or I'm not super comfortable in this route, I may or may not fall, I'm human. You know, and so like in teaching them to be vulnerable too, strong, but you can be vulnerable, it's okay. And so it's been like amazing. I just spent 40 days in Greece guiding there, and all these amazing people came out, and we had like such a great time, you know, and there were so many moments where I was like, oh, I'm not gonna climb this route in front of them and stuff like that, but you really need to learn how to push through it, you know, and teach them that confidence. And, you know, like, it's really fun to see their progress, you know, from, like, never climbed a route outside before to, like, leading their first route, and the smile that you put in their face, and, like, the entire process is, like, it couldn't be better. So, but that's it.
Any questions for Mesa? Even though she sat down already. Not letting you out of it. Sorry. Fair and equal opportunity for everyone. No questions about Brazil, and soccer, and if they're going to win the World Cup.
Yes.
Questions?
What's the next thing you want to build?
We have a lot, so we're building another cabin. And
Cabin round 2.
Yeah.
She's renting them too in Kentucky.
Yeah.
If you go.
Inside the red. None. I'm just kidding. I started developing a narrow way, but it's quartzite, so it's a lot of work. So we are just kind of climbing Helena, which is a great way to climb with people from Bozeman because it's like halfway from everybody. And this is basically, I climb with people from Bozeman because there's nobody really from Great Falls to climb with, so.
She's got her lady squad here.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No World Cup questions. Did you guys watch the shootout the other day? Okay, good. You guys are scaring me. Next up, moving right along, we have one Nikki Smith. Nikki, did you know you were next? Good, on the same page. Nikki is an artist, writer, photographer, guidebook author, runner, and climber of all types based in Salt Lake. She started climbing in the early 90s. We were alive then. Maybe some of these people weren't yet. And has been working in the outdoor industry in the climbing world since '98. Nikki's photography has been featured in many outdoor publications and is a National Geographic Adventure photo contributor. She's authored 5 climbing guidebooks to date, which makes me sound like there's potential in the future. And has written many feature articles for climbing magazines. She's done more than 150 first ascents throughout the West and has traveled the world to climb. Page 2. Nikki also represents Brooks Running, REI Mountain Hardware, Scarpa, Gravel, and there's at least 3 dozen more, I'm sure. It just says and more, but I'm making that up. Much of her work focuses on building a more inclusive, diverse, and safe community within climbing and the outdoors. She's an advocate for the LGBTQIA+ community, serves on the Patient Advocacy Board member. Little pronoun lines. Serves as a Patient Advocacy Board member for the University of Utah Transgender Health Program, and is a committee member for the American Mountain Guide Association's Jedi Committee. And it's been great hanging out occasionally when we can hang out, which is strangely difficult sometimes. Everybody welcome Nikki Smith.
Thanks y'all for being here tonight. So in October when Jeannie reached out to me to do this, I had a plan. I put together a slideshow. I'm a photographer, so of course I put together a bunch of photos. And then everything changed for me. So on Sunday morning, November 20th, it's the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And today we reflect on those who were murdered this year and in years past in the trans community. At that point, there were more than 32 known trans folks who had been murdered, and more than 300 worldwide. And that number keeps increasing every single year. I'm addicted to my phone, and so when I woke up that morning, I looked at my screen, and the first thing I saw was there was a mass shooting. And it was at a queer club in Colorado. And instantly I started to have a panic attack. Dancing is a big part of what saved my life, and queer clubs are where I could go to escape and have the space where I could just be myself. I didn't have to have all the baggage of being the person everyone thought I was for most of my life. I didn't have to live up to any expectations as a professional athlete or climber or photographer. I could just be there and dance. In Colorado, because the outdoor industry is there so much, I've spent a lot of time dancing in Colorado. And I instantly thought it was one of those clubs that I'd been to. I thought it was maybe some of my friends. And as I looked more, I saw that it was a club in Colorado Springs, and there were 5 killed and 17 wounded. Their names were Daniel Ashton, Raymond Green Vance, Kelly Loving, Ashley Poe, and Derek Rump. And as I read all about them over the next few days, as more and more info came out, I started trying to find out everything I could about one of them, Kelly Loving. She was a trans woman just like me. She was close to the same age as me. And she was just visiting, like I usually am when I go to Colorado, or Nevada, or California, or New York, or many of the other areas when I'm visiting for IceFests or other fests, and I try to go out dancing. And for the next few weeks, I could barely climb. I could hardly run. I hardly left the house. Then last week, I was at an event in Austin, Texas, which is one of the most transphobic states in the US. I was there for work. And on November 30th, the Department of Homeland Security put out a bulletin, and most people probably haven't even heard about this, but they put out a warning to the queer community, to the Jewish community, and to migrant communities that there are likely more attacks coming, and especially around the holidays. The online chatter and the things that they've been hearing are that a lot of militia groups have been emboldened by that shooting and others attacks like it. And I thought about how it's been advertised for weeks that I'm going to be here, that I'm going to be teaching, that I'm teaching a queer clinic. And then I know about all the militia groups that are around here. And I panicked. And I told Jeannie that I wasn't going to come. But I still had to come and teach because I told people I committed to being here to teach for my community. And as I was driving Monday, and I was alone in the car for more than 8 hours, I became so angry that I decided I had to speak. But it wasn't going to be the nice pretty pictures that I'm known for. Every time it's announced that I'm speaking, actually not on this one, but in general, when it's announced, someone always posts, why can't climbing just be about climbing? And so I want to talk about what it takes for me to come to a climbing event. So it starts when I'm asked to come out, and then I'm posted about, whether I'm speaking or teaching, and the online hate begins. Post after post after post of people saying horrific things, attacking entire communities, attacking me, attacking the fest and people who put it on. And then this comes into my DMs. And I'm given death threats for showing up to a climbing event. I have people offer to help me go through with the suicide attempts that I had years ago because I was too afraid to come out as myself. And sometimes I spend weeks deleting those comments that they post en masse on every single one of my posts, or constantly come into my DMs. I then get questions from the trans and queer communities because I'm usually teaching queer-specific courses along with women-specific ones. And I get over and over, like, will I be safe in Bozeman? Will I be safe in Ouray? will I be safe in many of these areas where these fests are held? And I know how important spaces like tonight are, to see other people like you in a space that we haven't fully been represented. But then I have to question myself. Am I bringing people into a space that is not safe? I don't always feel safe in these spaces. I don't always know whether I'm doing the right thing in holding these courses. And then the other part that begins weeks in advance is the research. I have to research the laws that each state has. There was one festival held in Tennessee where in 2019 they put in a new law. I already have to worry about being attacked by just using a public bathroom, but they put in a law that meant that I could be arrested if someone complained and cited for indecent exposure, which means I get put on a sex offender list for the rest of my life for using the bathroom in public. I have to know about laws like ones Arkansas has, and one of the reasons I don't go to the 24 hours of Horseshoe Hell, because I can be denied medical services if I was in a car accident or a climate accident and it wasn't life-threatening. But the first responder gets to decide what is life-threatening. I have to know whether the hospital chains within the town or area that I'm at are run by religious organizations that are going to discriminate against me if I have an accident. I have to know whether the states have walking while trans laws. For years, and maybe y'all have seen these if you look back in all the cop dramas and other shows, trans women were always portrayed as prostitutes. They were always the ones that were murdered at the start of the show. And walking while trans laws were ways for the police to arrest us on sight. And if we had a condom in our purse, that was enough for us to be arrested for solicitation. So when I go out dancing, I have to be constantly worried that just in a dress to go out dancing is enough for me to be arrested. And I have to do this every time I travel, because I know I'm the only one who's going to be able to protect myself, because the people who organize these events don't even know to look for this information. And then I start getting ready for the drive. So the night before, I stop drinking liquids. And on the drive, I rarely drink anything. Because I'm driving, in this case, it was more than 7 hours, and I'm going through rural parts of Utah, Idaho, and Montana. And I know that the truck stops I'm going to stop out in small towns aren't safe. I stand a very high chance of being assaulted just for going into those bathrooms. And so I do everything I can to not have to go to the bathroom, or if I do, I look for roads that I can pull off and disappear into the woods to use the bathroom. Or if I do go into one of those truck stop gas stations, I am so afraid. And if someone comes in while I'm in the stall, I sit in there and wait till they leave. I wait till everyone leaves if I can. I circle sometimes that exit, and there are 2 or 3 gas stations maybe, and I look and see which one has the least amount of cars. And then I wake up the next day at the area I'm at, and I have a dehydration headache. And as you all as athletes know, going into any activity dehydrated is already a danger, especially in winter sports like this. And then the event starts. When I first came out in 2018, the Bozeman IceFest was one of the first events that I did. Earlier that year, the previous winter, I had done events with someone that I had looked up to since the 90s when I first became aware of them. And we had talked together. And we had talked about doing a trip. And then I came out, and I saw them in the parking lot in Highlight. And I went to say hi, and they turned their back on me. and spent the rest of the fest ignoring me. Every time they saw me, and this has continued on fest after fest, they will see me and they'll turn around and kind of run away to pretend like they didn't see me. And it's almost comical if I didn't know it was rooted in hate and ignorance of who I am. At another event, there was a photo booth, and another famous climber, who I've been friends with for a long time, asked if I would take a photo with him. And of course I said yes. And after we had a normal photo, he then turned to me and said, "We need to do one now where we kiss." And he could see the look of shock and horror in many ways on my face. And he said, "We need to change, we need to show everybody that there's nothing wrong with you. We need to change the optics." When I meet my clinic participants that I'm teaching, when it's been a mixed gender one, and I've met them in the parking lot, I had a guy once say, "I didn't pay a couple $100 to have some fucking tranny teach me." I have students who misgender me, some of them deliberately, but most of them inadvertently the entire time, which is even more painful when it's an all-women's clinic. One of the things I hear last year as I was teaching a mixed clinic, in climbing these are comp boots, they're crampons bolted on the bottom, but they've been given the nickname fruit boots. Neither people don't know or don't care the origin of that. When people first started climbing with these in the early 2000s, a lot of other climbers derided that and said it was ridiculous and fruity, another word for gay, because it was such a stupid thing to a lot of people. And then a lot of climbers just adopted that and it became like a self-deprecating thing. And so I have to correct people, I have to correct sales reps while I'm standing next to them in another booth, they're talking about their fruit boots. When people talk about beta on certain routes, there are terms like foot faggotry or the gay science, which are both terms that were created in Rifle, Colorado in the early years of sport climbing for technical footwork, for knee bars, for clip sticks, and other things. Because again, that was considered weak, so it was given names that derided the gay community. I listen to people when I'm hanging out at the Emerson and someone's talking about what they climbed and they said that they worked something and they had to take, and their buddy's like, "That's so fucking gay," like that they took, that's considered weak. And so of course they use slurs against the queer community. I look in the guidebooks and I see names like frozen lycra faggot, limp-wristed faggot. And then the dinner after, I've learned that no matter how cold it is when I go into L Works or any of the restaurants on Main Street, that I strip down to my base layer because I'm less likely to be referred to as sir or male pronouns when the host or server is trying to seat me. I've learned that I have to sit with my back to the wall, and even though I've had conversations with some of the people around me, they often, in the heat of the moment, forget about that, and I sit with my back to everyone. And as I'm sitting there eating dinner, I see someone at another table staring at me and laughing, and they get up to go to the bathroom, and they walk across, and they purposely slam into my chair and mutter under their breath, "Faggot." And then no one at the table says anything. Either they're too caught up in their own conversations, or they are too ashamed or scared or don't even know what to do, so they stay silent. I've learned in this town that when I get invited to go to the hot springs, I can no longer do that. Because the dressing rooms there with families and folks from all over Montana, it's just not safe. I've learned from experience that when I'm asked by everybody to go bar hopping or go to karaoke in the evening, that's not safe. Over and over, I've had experiences where I go out and someone starts hitting on me. And then they go back to their table and all their friends start laughing at them until they were hitting on a man. Many of the murders of these trans women that happen are from incidences just like that, where someone's manhood was questioned, and so they retaliate. So in 35 states right now, there's a defense called the gay or trans panic defense, where people have gotten off for murder, they've gotten off for assault, in situations just like that, by saying that they were hit on by someone who was gay, or they were fooled by someone who was trans. I also have to worry because I can't fight back, because I know that the police are just as likely to assault me. In 2020, NBC News put out an article where they looked at data from 45 states, 5 other states would not give any of this data, but there were 4,890 trans prisoners in state prisons in the US. Only 15 of those were placed in prison or jail based on their gender. So if I fight back and I'm arrested, I'll be placed in the men's jail or men's prison. And then looking the way I do, what is everyone think is going to happen to me? So I just avoid it. And then I repeat this each day at the fest. I have to speak, teach, hang out, shake hands, focus on performing and climbing, and pretend that everything is okay. So why do I even come? I've been a climber for more than 30 years now, and I've been outdoors all my life. Climbing has literally shaped my body. Like many of you know, Instagram with broad shoulders and not because of climbing. I choose to do activities that are difficult, that are cold and scary and cold. Climbing's a part of me, just as drawing, cooking, dancing, photography, and so many other activities are. Losing access to places like this would mean losing a part of me. Not being a part of the community would be losing a part of me. I've climbed many of the people in this room. I've taught a lot of y'all in events, this event, and this year at the Women's Climbing Fest here, and other things, and I would lose that if I didn't come. I know I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for spaces like this. I belong here, regardless of whether or not I'm accepted. But most of all, I think about Kelly Loving, I think about Marsha P. Johnson, and so many others like me who were murdered for being themselves. I think about those who took their own lives because they were so afraid of being who they were. I think about the messages that I get from people from the trans and queer community almost every week now that have heard my story and feel like they can finally have a chance to be someone that they've always been because there's someone else out there like them. And to honor them, I have to honor and love myself. I have to honor and love the woman I am, the woman I've always been, and the woman I hope to be. I think everyone here has experienced not belonging, of not being welcomed, of having to hide parts of you to fit in. Some of you in this group of being the only one like you in the audience here. You wouldn't be here tonight in this space if you weren't looking to be a part of something. And you all belong. You deserve to be here, you deserve to be a part of this community, and you deserve to be seen. I'm constantly told by the people who ask me to speak that we need you to help create change. We need you to be here. We need you to educate us. And also, this is an inclusive space. And then I have to ask myself, why is everyone waiting for me to show up to educate you? Why is everyone waiting for some of the others who spoke tonight to educate them? When is everyone else going to start doing the work to educate yourselves? To make it so that I don't have to constantly look and see what's going on with the laws in some state that I don't even live in just to visit. When we talk about inclusive spaces, I think all we have to do is look around this room tonight and see that we still have a long way to go. There are so many people in our community that are not here. And over I hear that they just don't exist. There just aren't that many people from marginalized communities in climbing, or especially ice climbing. But there's an entire IceFest that started up called the All In IceFest for those communities. They exist, but they are afraid to be here. They do not feel welcome. And we have a lot of work to do. This is an amazing gathering. This is something I never thought I would see, and I'm so glad that y'all put this together and that y'all are here attending tonight. It is important. But there's still a long way to go. So tonight's theme was supposed to be vulnerability and risk. And all too often we focus on words like these and we apply them to activities such as climbing or skiing. But we don't put as much emphasis on other areas in our life with those same words or ideals. Why do we limit it? Told over and over that people are afraid to dig in. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing. They're afraid of cancel culture. They're afraid to stand up for other people. Everyone in this room participates in activities where you've chosen to take the most difficult line up a cliff, up a mountain, take the steepest line down a ski run. Why can't we all apply that to other areas of our life and choose to do that work, to educate ourselves, to support other people, to advocate? Just like climbing, it is hard. And it could take multiple times, and you might fail over and over. You might say or do the wrong thing. But we choose to red point our projects in the exact same way. Maggie Kuhn once stated, "Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes." So tonight I'm sharing my shaky voice. For some of us, climbing will never just be about climbing until everyone else stands up and adds their voice, shaky or not, to ours. We need all of you. We are a community, but we need to do more to make it a full community, to welcome everyone else. So thank you for listening to me tonight.
There's no words to express all that you communicated and shared and the vulnerability that that you're here for. This is what Broad Beta exists for, and I know that the challenge of you being that person that always has to be here and stand up.
Not just being there for other people here.
Of course, for sure, and that's what you communicated to us, that it's our turn. But, thank you for that, because it is. And I think we all learn that. As much as we try, there's so much more to do, and it's just a beautiful expression of, finding our true selves and standing up. And as climbers, that's what we do, and it's time we do it in the rest of our lives for everyone on the margins, I think. So, and we're here for you and for everyone this weekend, and it's hard to imagine in small towns that, I've been here since '94, and it has always felt like a really safe place, and things have changed, and it's not, and it's even as a woman you think, oh, we have our challenges, but it's nothing compared to so many, and so it's a great opportunity for all of us. All right, we have one more. One more speaker that Becky's going to introduce, and last but not least, Katie McKinstry, right here. Let Becky do your intro, and then we'll follow up with a quick raffle poll, and let y'all get home this week so you can go climb tomorrow.
See, who does that? Since I'm the intro girl. Last intro, Katie McKinstry. We say it with an Irish accent. Bringing it back to Bozeman. How long have you been here?
5 years.
5 years. But grew up in Meridian, Idaho, riding horses. But after losing her horse to an unfortunate circumstance, she found climbing, which I think many of you can relate to. If one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden you're climbing rocks and doing stupid stuff. And, slowly branching outside of horses, she found this new passion of being in the mountains. In 2018, she moved here to Bozeman, looking for a new direction, where she started going to school. Always questionable decision, and grew roots within the climbing community. For Katie, there's no better way to spend her day than going up to Highlight and finding some pristine frozen water to swing tools into with friends. And she also likes swinging tools into rock as well, which takes a special kind of person. Any other housekeeping things? If you haven't put your raffle ticket into a bucket, please do so. And we'll address some of those things after Katie speaks to us.
Hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here in front of all of you. So I'm going to be telling my kind of personal story of how I went from being obsessed and riding with horses to being here with you guys today. So, my name's Katie. I live here in town. I'm a climber, and I'm a student, as terrible as sometimes that is. And I'm an artist. But before I was these things, I was your horse girl. Literally, in all definitions, I was obsessed. So I grew up in a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood, and I begged and begged my parents to please get me riding lessons, and they did. And for most of my young childhood, I rode horses once a week, and this pony's name was Lacey. She was great. But eventually, once a week wasn't enough. And so I actually did a little bit of research and found out that there was a very extremely amazing rider 15 minutes down the road from me. She was a backup on the Olympic team, and I was like, I have to meet her. And turns out, her name's Sarah, and turns out she was actually hiring a working student. And what a working student is essentially you work for somebody, and they, in return, give you lessons and a couple horses to ride. And for me, coming from a place where I only did lessons once a week, because that's what my parents could afford, I thought this was great. But to be able to work for Sarah, that meant I couldn't go to public school anymore, and I also thought that was great. So I did online school, and I started working full-time when I was 13. I worked 6 days a week from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, getting to the barn, feeding horses, and ending the day feeding horses and going home. But because that's kind of how this rolls, I don't know why that's so blurry, sorry everybody, but you know, I got to experience horses in a way that a lot of people don't, and that means that, you know, a lot of people come into the barn and they worked all day and they get to see their horse for an hour or two, longer on the weekends. Well, I got to experience horses 12 hours a day, and I was in love. And I got to be a part of a barn family that, you know, was really amazing. And I spent more time with my barn family than I actually spent with my actual family. I'm so sorry, I don't know why these are all so blurry. It's really disappointing. But I guess you get the gist. So the sport that I did was called 3-day eventing, and what it is essentially a sport or a horse triathlon. So there's 3 days, and first day is dressage, second day is cross country, and for, I think, maybe, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. And so essentially what you do is you ride your horse around a course, and you jump over natural obstacles and go through water. And if you're a 3-day eventer, the reason you do it is so you can ride horses cross country. And the horse that I'm riding in that picture, his name is Owl. He was an ex-racehorse, and that course that I was doing, a piece of the course went on to an old racetrack, and it was fun, to say the least. So the more I did this, we're just gonna see blurry pictures, I guess, everybody, sorry. The more I did this, the better I got, and the better I got, you know, things were great. And I was winning a lot of things, and that's a blue ribbon if you can't tell. So when things were great, they were great, you know, and I got to ride a lot of incredible horses, and not just the horse that is in this photo, but I was getting to kind of bring up some young horses, and I was improving a lot. And eventually this horse that I was riding, he was a little bit older, and he needed to be retired, and my trainer approached me, and she said, Katie, it's time for you to get your own horse. And at this point, I still had never had my own horse, and I was like, heck yeah, that's a great idea. And so I approached my parents and talked to them about it, and obviously they were fairly hesitant. But we decided to move forward with that plan. And so we went to the racetrack, and I met Finn, and I named him Finn after a barn cat that I loved, who had passed away. And when I met Finn, it kind of was like meeting a piece of my soul. I had never met a creature or a horse that I bonded with so quickly, and we felt like we were just kind of two peas in a pod. And Finn was great, but he also was wildly injury prone. And so when we bought Finn, he was 3 years old. And so he was obviously very much in a stage of light riding and not competing. He's basically in a stage where he's learning how to steer. And so this summer I was traveling, I was in Washington for a horse show. I wasn't riding very much at this time, and I was grooming, meaning I was taking care of my trainer's horses at the horse show and getting them ready and doing all the things that I did at the barn on an everyday basis, but away from home. And we got a phone call, and Finn had fallen in his pasture, and I was assured that it was all okay, and he was going to be good, and I didn't worry about it. And we went home, and the injury was much more than I was told. And I later found out that I was told that so I wouldn't be distracted from working and taking care of the horses that I had under my care. In the injury, he had fallen in his pasture, and what the injury was he temporarily paralyzed a nerve over his shoulder, causing him to basically not be able to walk. And I spent 6 months not riding, pretty much, and taking care of him. And it was in that 6 months that I learned that I didn't need to ride a horse to have a relationship with them. But during that 6 months, things kind of went south at the barn. And, it turns out, I didn't realize, but a lot of my relationship at the barn was based on how well I was doing when I was competing. And I wasn't competing anymore. I was walking the horse around the arena with weights on his ankles so he could learn how to walk again. And one day, I was approached by my trainer, and she took me aside, and she said to me, "Katie, I'm sorry, but I'm letting you go. I think you've lost sight of your dreams, and we no longer need you here, and we will need you to find somewhere else to go." I was 17, and I worked for Sarah 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, oftentimes 7 days a week, since I was 13, spending more time with her and her family than I spent with my own. And to say that my heart broke in two is an understatement. So to go to the barn, I would go at 6 in the morning before chores start, or I went at 8 o'clock at night after chores were done. And turns out the horse world is really small. And when the horse world is really small, I was not welcome at any barn in Idaho after that. So, at least eventing facility. So I needed to go somewhere else. And that meant I had to leave Idaho. And luckily for me, maybe, I just graduated online school. And I moved to Washington, to a barn called Aspen Farms, in a very small town called Yelm, with the most beautiful view of Mount Rainier. And I started again. I got a job managing a barn there, and Finn was to the point where I could start riding him again. And, for the most part, things were really good. The barn was very different. There was a lot less horses there. I think at the barn in Idaho, we had roughly 25 to 30 horses going. In this barn, we had 10. And it was me and another girl that were taking care of the horses. And the barn owners, John and Susie, they were starting a family. So things were very different. I went from this very high-paced, competitive, 12 hours a day, riding horses from sunup to sundown, to I maybe, rode a few horses a day. And I got to spend a lot of time with my own horse, and that was really special. And, he was doing really well, which is awesome. But there was always something kind of off. And I'd spent enough time with horses at this point to realize that, I could tell that there was something wrong with my horse. And so I kind of had that bad feeling. I think maybe, I think maybe I'm speaking for myself, but maybe you can relate to this. I feel like as women, we have this distinct gut feeling. And I had that with this situation, and I really didn't want to believe what I thought I was thinking might happen. And I took him down to a renowned vet in Oregon, and we did bone scan. and long story short, they put some ink inside of them, and then they scan them, and then you look at the scan, and purple lights show up on the scan that tell you where you might have some issues. So we scanned him, and I'm sitting there with the vet, and he lights up in his neck, and his ribs, and in his pelvis. And turns out, that summer before, when I was in Washington, and I got that phone call that he had fallen, the injury was even more than that paralyzed shoulder. So in that fall, he had actually fractured his neck, broken his ribs, and hurt his pelvis. And that radial nerve paralyzation covered up that major neck injury. And as it healed, it closed on his spinal cord, causing him to become neurologic, losing all feeling in his limbs, and would eventually cause him to not be able to use them at all. And I sat there with Rachel, the vet, and I looked at her, fairly straight-faced, and I said to her, "This means I have to say goodbye." And she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said yes. So I took Finn home to Washington, to the farm, and I took him down to the most beautiful pasture I could find, with the most beautiful view of Rainier. And I said goodbye to the one thing that held me together at a time in my life that I didn't know what I was going to do. And I asked, how is it that in 1 year I can lose my family that was everything to me, that completely hung me up to dry. And I also lost the creature that was a piece of my soul. And I tried really hard to keep doing what I was doing. Imagine that picture wasn't blurry, it'd be great. But it never really was the same. I had, when Finn passed, I lost a little bit of my passion for horses. And that summer I'd met a horse builder who lived on the farm. His name was Joe. And I think he could see how lost I was when nobody else did. And so he took me to a place that seemed like only he knew that could possibly be healing for me. And it turns out that was the mountains. And for the first time going into the mountains, this is a place I'd never been in my entire life, I felt like I could breathe. I felt like there wasn't this expectation of me to be something that I had put pressure on myself to be, but also everyone around me was putting pressure on me. And I could just be. I could be present, I could enjoy this, and I could experience something I'd never experienced before. But because I was new at it, I also was kind of bad at it, and it was really hard. But that experience of being in the mountains and being able to be something I'd never been before was new and attracted me to keep doing it more. It turns out if you keep doing something, you get better at it. And so I spent a summer doing some of the volcanoes. We did the Sunshine Route on Hood. We did the North Ridge on Baker. That was awesome. And then we went to Rainier. And the day before my 21st birthday, I summited Mount Rainier via the Couts. And, summiting Mount Rainier was huge because I had looked at Mount Rainier from the farm for 4 years. And the difference of me showing up on the farm as a horse rider, as a person who had all these plans and these big goals for me and my young horse, and then 4 years later to not really be riding and to be standing on the top of it is a complete 180. And I couldn't believe I was standing there. Like, this is me having a moment of disbelief. And more significantly, though, was the next day we decided to overnight, because unlike Deb, I hate going fast, and I wanted to stay one more night and just soak it in, and I wanted to wake up on the mountain on my 21st birthday. And so this is probably one of the most significant pictures in my life, because I woke up to the most beautiful sunrise that I'd ever seen, and this is me at a crossroads. And one direction is the life that I had made for myself, from the time I was 7 years old, which is, I mean, I literally in this photo, back at the farm, I had lessons planned for that week, I had horses in the barn that I was training, and this whole thing was set up. Everything that I had planned, it was there. And then the other direction was, who knows what? Is it climbing? Is it mountains? Is it traveling? I didn't know. And on my 21st birthday, I decided to take the path that led me to the unknown. And so, the unknown eventually led to Alaska, and I got off the plane back in Talkeetna, and I called Shauna, who used to be the manager at Spire at the climbing gym in town, and I begged her for a job. And she finally said yes. And I was so excited. And so I moved to Bozeman, and I got a job at the climbing gym, and I was doing things I had never done before, and it was pretty great. And I was welcomed into a community in a way that I had never been welcomed before. And I quickly realized that I was getting to experience things I had never experienced before. And that was spending quality, genuine time with women. You know, I don't want to speak for the entire horse community, but my personal experience with the horse community was very surface level, and there was a lot of, I want you to do well, but deep down they actually don't want you to do well, because if you do well, that means they're not doing well. And for the first time, I got to go out climbing, and it didn't matter if you climbed 5'6", or if you climbed 5'14". People just wanted to go out and have fun, and that was new for me. Like, it didn't matter if I had a big goal or if I was just going climbing, and getting to do it with women in a way that we could talk about crying and emotions and periods, and everybody understood what we were talking about, and everybody understood those emotions you're feeling. Or if you just woke up that day and you're like, something feels off, I just don't feel really great, I don't know if I really feel like climbing. And then they don't make you feel bad for feeling that way. You just get to be you, and you get to experience these experiences with people, and they understand you, and you feel heard. And it made me realize, for the first time in my life, that I was a part of the problem in the horse community too. I was a part of that community that wasn't necessarily honest and truthful in my support. And moving to Bozeman, moving and experiencing this community, helped me become a more genuine friend, helped me become a more genuine person in my support that I give, and helped me get excited about other people's successes too. This is Krista. I don't know if Krista's here tonight, but this was her first day leading elevator shaft. And there was a lot of big feelings going into this, and I was just as excited as her when she got to the anchors and got back down as she was. And this experience made me realize how much I want to be a part of other people's successes, not just my own. And as I started to do that, I started to kind of want to continue my climbing a little bit more, because I felt like I was starting to believe in myself in a way I had never believed in myself. And that's when I reached out to Carly with Project Direct. I don't think Carly is here, but if you guys are looking for somebody, not only for physical coaching, but mental coaching, she's incredible. And I used her for mental coaching, and I called her my climbing therapist. And I didn't really realize how much of my my horse trauma and my horse experience was leading into my climbing, and how much it was holding me back. And not just fear-based, but also how much I didn't believe in myself, and how much that experience of Sarah not believing in me when I was 17 years old made me not believe in myself when I was climbing, in a completely different experience. And she helped me work through that, and helped me kind of explore ways to be able to move through these doubts mentally. So then after working with her, and her helping give me these mental skill sets to work through the fear and the doubt, and also being surrounded by women who were believing in me too, all of a sudden I started believing in myself, and I started doing crazy things. And I got into dry tooling, and this is something that I never, ever, ever thought I would do, and I've just slowly kind of all of a sudden gotten to this point. I'm not really sure how I got here, but it's a lot of fun. And when I started believing in myself, the grades and what this climb is difficulty-wise kind of just went out the window, and it kind of became a thing of like, you should just try it out because, and then all of a sudden the climbing became about inspiration, and it became about the line, and it became about the experience of trying hard, and all of a sudden I went from climbing something to trying this, and this is a route and highlight called House of Flying Daggers, and it's an ongoing project. I'm on year 2 of trying to do it, and maybe it's way out of my pay grade, but it's also been an incredible, exciting mental journey, and the amount of people that have come up the trail with me, Whitney being one of them who's in the back, and has belayed me countless times on this thing is incredible, and nobody has ever made me feel bad for dragging them up the trail and for hopping on a route and screaming and crying and complaining and whatever. Like, they're with me and we're doing it together, and that's the exciting part of this. And it was soon after trying really hard last year on this route and not getting it, it's, like I said, it's an ongoing thing, that I was invited to go to a trip to the Dolomites, to a cave there, and do some hard dry tooling. And I did not know what to expect whatsoever. The only dry tooling I'd ever done was in highlight, and I was, told all sorts of things, and I went into this experience with 3 other guys who were all really lovely, and I kind of went with, yes, I will train and I will try, but I have no expectations, and I want to go as a support role for Kevin, who had a lot of really big goals this trip. And this trip for him had a lot of meaning because a lot of the routes set in this cave, or bolted in this cave, were bolted by his friend Tom, and so, who had passed away. And so a lot of this trip had this emotional value to it. And so I kind of went in there, I was like, I will train, I will try, but I also want to do this support role for Kevin. But we got there, and I got to do some climbing, and I got to do some projecting, and this route was called Edge of Tomorrow. It goes at D13, but really, truly, it was just about trying and doing my best, and I was able to get to the anchor. And I got to the anchor kind of in disbelief, which maybe this photo shows, maybe it doesn't. And I was in a cave, a very large cave, and all the people there that were there with me were guys. And yes, they were supportive, and yes, they were great and amazing. But I had to take a moment, which this picture doesn't show, but I took a moment for myself to thank all the women that came before me. Angelica, she's here tonight, I believe. But Angelica, you guys will hear her story tomorrow, hopefully, but she's done some incredible climbing in this cave, but also, this is something I would not have been able to do if I didn't come to Bozeman and have the women be like, I don't care if we climb 5-6, I don't care if we climb this, or do whatever, and put 0 expectations on me, because then I was able to go to Italy, put 0 expectations on myself, and succeed. And once I was able to do this route, we still had a little bit of time left, and I moved on to the extension of this route called Oblivion. And Oblivion pushed me in ways I had never been pushed, not only physically, but also mentally. And every time I got on this route, I was trying at my absolute physical hardest, which meant that I had to prepare myself mentally every time I got on this route to try that hard. And it was exhausting. And the move that you see here is the second to last move, so I'm going to that hold. And the move you see here is the last move. So this, I hit this hold, and that's the farthest I got, but I was not able to do this move. And I will say that I was disappointed, and I felt a lot of emotion. And the last day that I was there, I had, I just didn't feel great. I was super tired. I really needed like 3 weeks off at this point, because we were there for 5 weeks. And I got 3 quarters of the way through the route, and I had Joe take, and I said, I just need to stop. Because all of a sudden, it became so much about getting to the anchor and less about the experience for that last climb. And I was like, I don't want it to feel like this. And I took a moment to just be there, to be in that incredible cave, to be that in there in that incredible space and be there as a female in a place that's not necessarily, there's not a lot of women in this cave. And I wanted to experience that. And I'm so grateful for this trip because I think, not getting to this anchor was way more meaningful than if I got to the anchor. And I was able to take a moment to really enjoy the space, more so than I think if I had gotten to the anchor. And as much as I want to go back and get to the anchor, I think I learned more from having an experience that I did have. So what's happening now, since this is such an often asked question, I'm engaged to the guy who took me to the mountains. Which is awesome. I know that's not a very common experience for a lot of people, for the first guy that takes them to the mountains, but Joe's great, so I love him. I'm excited to marry him. And I've started a business, and I'm in school, but I actually presented my thesis today, so. And it went really well. And I'm also getting to teach women how to ice climb, and that is incredible because I feel like I have experienced so much from this community, and this community has healed me in ways that I don't know how else I would have been able to heal. And I feel like I can now take the things that I have been taught by the women in this room and take those to the clinics that I'm teaching and the places that I'm going. So, huge thank you to all the women that have come into my life. You have truly changed my life and changed my experiences for the better. So, this is an incredible place, an incredible community. So, thank you all so much for being here.
Okay, it's question time. Any questions about scratching around on rocks, traveling to Italy, why Italy's not in the World Cup? Oh, hands. Yes.
Are you teaching this weekend?
Yes, I am teaching. I'm teaching Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I don't know what clinics. I'm not teaching any dry clinics though, funny enough. Just ice, which is also awesome. I do love ice climbing.
Anyone else? Yes, I knew there's a minute.
What is your business?
Oh yeah, let's do a shameless plug here. My business is called Highlight Designs. I do graphic design and rope art. So I'm getting it up off the ground. So if you want to follow at highlight_designs, I'm on Instagram, and I've got some stuff for sale, so you should think about Christmas presents.
Anyone else? Question?
So I'm 30 and just had ACL surgery in September and have never climbed and very interested in once I can get into climbing. So from being, and I'm new to Bozeman, looking for friends. But from being from Spire, did you learn how to climb there, or did you climb before? Is that a good place to attempt?
That's a great question. So my first climbing experiences were mountaineering. And I did a lot of climbing in a really amazing gym in Olympia called the Warehouse or something. It was in this really cool kind of garage. But anyways, so when I moved here, I enjoy rock climbing, but I also actually haven't rock climbed in 2 years. And so the first time I ever went outside was ice climbing, rope climbing, cragging. And so Spire is absolutely an incredible place. I think you should if you can, do a little mingling and find some women specifically to get out into the gym with you, and people that you trust to take you outside that are going to get you good, positive, amazing experiences. And I do feel like this entire room would be awesome for that. For me personally, I didn't do a ton of gym climbing, mostly because I kind of wanted to go down this ice climbing experience more so than the rock climbing. I really only climbed 5'6". So But dry tooling and ice climbing for sure. If you're interested in dry tooling, just right over here is the Mountain Project, and there's a tiny little cave in the back. And Kevin, who, I don't know if you guys, he's talking on Sunday, he's great. He built it for himself initially, but now it's like a community space. And it's like an awesome space to get into dry tooling, especially because dry tooling can be fairly intimidating. And like Nicole, she's in there a lot of the time, and I'm in there a lot of the time. And it's a great space to just learn how to kind of figure out the technique in a way that's a little bit less scary and intimidating. Because being on the rock with sharp things on your feet can be pretty scary. So doing it in a gym scenario is great. So Mountain Project is awesome, Inspire is awesome, finding climbing partners in this room, even better. So hopefully that answers your question.
So Julie's going to say a couple things, then we're going to do a raffle.
Yeah, there are a million things I'd like to say, but a couple more thank yous. Clearly this is a journey of partnerships, and the women that I get to work with make this so fun, having been in an industry that was predominantly men for so long. So I just want to thank 4 women who are here tonight who helped make Broad Beta what it is. Maria and India and Laura and Sarah, thank you. It's super fun seeing people light up and just jump in, and it's what makes this all worth it, and it's just a journey that's really exciting, and thank you all for being here. And last but not
Go on.
last but not least,
Continue.
of course, Uphill Pursuits for being here. I have written my notes about 4 times. I did not read my notes when I got up. But I want to thank Becky and just give her a couple of some things. No. Everything. She grew up about a couple hours from where I did. When I met her, it was clear that we were so alike as Midwesterners who'd come to Bozeman, but very different in our pursuits at first. And she's been someone I've looked up to. She's helped me with my climbing. She's an inspiration in so many ways. And organizing this event, it made all the difference. She's just, every time I'd say something, it'd be done, it'd be easy. And those kinds of partnerships outside the mountains are as important as in the mountains. So I could not be more grateful to you for everything you've done to make this happen, and being a great friend and an inspiration to all of us as climbers. So,
It was really just because she forgot to thank me in the beginning. She was making me sound a lot better than I really am. We're going to do a raffle. And if you've ever experienced my raffles before, I like to bust through them really fast.